just gotta let that out. This cake drove me nuts. But I made a set of Peppa Pig rain boots because April showers bring May flowers. To make my Peppa Pig rain boots, I baked 12 pounds of my ultimate vanilla cake. I dyed 6 pounds of it blue and like a tealy blue and 6 pounds of it yellow, and then I baked each cake in a 9x13 pan. My cakes are baked, cooled, and chilled. It's time to remove them from their pans and ladle them, which is when I level them, cut off the caramelization, and cut them into layers. Now, I had made myself a template that just looked like a basic sole of a shoe. Just remember to use that template, one way and then the other way, because you need a right foot and a left foot. I cut out my template 8 times, so I had 8 whole soles, and then I cut my template in half and I just cut out the back part because obviously it's a boot, so the leg portion is taller and it needs more cake. Once I have all my shapes cut out, I laid out all the cakes and simple syrup them with the help of Sir Squeeze. I used to watch a lot of Peppa Pig because my son loved Peppa Pig. He's too old for Peppa now. And the funniest thing about Peppa is she's British, so she has an accent, but my son didn't really understand that people had different accents. Peppa, you're such a chatterbox. I kept saying, oh, you're like Peppa, you're a chatterbox. And he's like, no, it's a chatterbox, because he didn't understand it was the same word. Yeah. The syrup is soaked in. It's time to fill and stack these cakes with Italian meringue buttercream. And I also want to alternate the colors of the cake because I just think that will look really cool. And then I'm going to stack the portion of cakes that are making the leg of the boot. Keep in mind the pattern of your alternating colors and continue that. And for the legs, I'm stacking 5 layers of cake with Italian meringue buttercream. My cakes are nice and chilled. It's time to stack them together and carve. So we're gonna work up to the point where we add dowels and a board in between just to make sure these boots are secure. But for now, I wanna get the shape right. Boots look like one of those things that should be simple to carve, but it's actually kind of hard. Yeah, it's weird. Because right now they look very spacey, very moon boots. And you need to add those subtle curves, how they go in a bit at the ankle and they come in at the back of your ankle. And then of course they curve into the arch of your foot. All of those things you gotta keep in mind. So I cut the front curve, the back curve. I rounded out the leg part of the boot, really round down the toes. Make sure to accentuate the inner arch of the boot. Oh my God, I just drank coffee in the video.
So?
Yeah, but I don't normally do that. It's like I don't realize we're doing this for real. Okay, so once you're happy with the shape of your boots, then you want to take your cakes apart. And let's add some structure to this cake. I have a cake board for the bottom of the cake, which is cut in the same shape as my template, like the sole. I have 2 of them. And then I have another board cut that's the same shape but a bit smaller, okay? And I glued those together, almost like a heel. So we are adding dowels to the soles of the shoe where the leg will go on top. Then I'm adding a little cake board in the shape of an oval in between, adding the leg portion of the cake, and now I'm going to cut a dowel to the height of the whole cake, sharpen one end, and push that all the way down because we want it to go through those base boards we created. And now we can stick both cakes on their own board and we can crumb coat and chill. I am using an offset spatula. It really, really helps, but just take your time and make sure the cake is fully crumb coated in Italian meringue buttercream. Now that the crumb coat is chill, we're gonna ice and chill these boots. Again, I'm using a small offset spatula, and I also used my invention just to help me with certain curves on the boot. And now I'm gonna chill the cakes again. I should make a note, if after you've iced your boots, there's a lot of ridges, Just wet your fingertips and smooth those ridges out in the buttercream with your fingertips while the buttercream is ice cold. The next thing I have to do is cover the top of the cake with some black fondant because obviously boots are normally empty. You put your foot in them, so we just want to create some darkness. I'm rolling out a sheet of thin black fondant, and once I'm happy with the thickness, I'm just going to cut it in half, lay each sheet on top of each cake, smooth it, and then trim away the excess flush with the cake. The next thing I want to do is roll out my colors for the pattern I'm going to create on the boot. I just want them to be rolled out and chilled a little so that right after I cover the cake, I can move on to the pattern. So I'm rolling out some white, burgundy, and maroon, and I rolled them out into nice thin sheets. I'm setting those aside for now, and now I have to cover these boots. The real reason I rolled out the colors is because I'm procrastinating. Okay, so I'm covering...
Are you at the difficult part now?
Yes, we're at the difficult part. I'm covering each boot entirely in a light pink fondant. I feel like it's very Peppa Pig. So I roll out a big rectangle of my pink fondant, but what's tricky is I have to be able to pick this up, drape it around the boot with the seam at the back of the boot, and then I also have to be able to smooth it onto the ankle, okay? You're gonna see from the footage, it's really difficult because it's a lot of fondant and it's heavy, but I have no choice but to smooth it on the cake as I'm applying it, and the problem is while I'm working on one part, the rest of it wants to fall off. I did the first boot and I can't believe it, but I successfully covered it in one go. I was a little unhappy with the back part where the fondant met up at the seam because I can feel that the fondant had thinned out. Often when you try to grab the fondant and pull it up, every time you do that, you're actually stretching it. But it made it around and I knew that with the details, we wouldn't even see that. But when it came to covering the second boot, it took me 3 tries.
Oh no.
And this is where I really started to lose my patience. I really did. I was so frustrated, but finally on the 3rd try, I covered the boot. So my advice is this: if you're covering a cake that's difficult to cover, and at any point you start to feel like you're losing the battle, rip the fondant off as fast as you can, and hopefully you won't lose the beautiful icing job underneath. Once you start to cover it and smooth it and leave the cake out, if you go back and rip it off at that point, you're probably gonna have to re-ice, re-chill. Like you're gonna have to do many steps more than once, not just the covering. So make that decision game time.
That's stressful.
Yes, extremely. This is a lot of stress for a cartoon pig. It really is. So now I have another shade of pink fondant. It's more of a medium pink. And I need to create the sole of the boot and then the band at the top. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll out my fondant. I'm going to texture it with a drawer liner I have. It's not the turkey skinator. It's the same drawer liner I used on my football cake. It looks like dots. So I'm just gonna texture it with that mat. And then what I need to do is cut 2 even bands and wrap them around the bottom of the cake. I'm gonna make sure the seam is always at the back of the boot, and I'm gluing the bands on with clear piping gel. Once they're glued on, I'm gonna use one of my homemade rulers, which is just a piece of board cut to different sizes. And I'm gonna cut 1/4 inch of fondant off the bottom of that band because I want to create that feeling of emptiness under the boot. Now I'm gonna cut bands for the top of the boot that are the same color. So here's what really bothered me. When I covered the boot, I was hoping my light pink fondant would stand up over the boot and I could create a rim, okay? But because it was so thinned out and it wasn't even, I couldn't do that successfully, and I just trimmed it flush with the boot. But I need a rim so that that black fondant is a bit lower and starts to appear like darkness, right? So what I did was, I was trying to think of how do I make fondant stand up and not fall over. So what I did is I wrapped masking tape backward around the top of each boot. And so I created like a little mask tape fence. And then I cut bands of the medium pink fondant and I laid them inside. My other irritation is I just wanted to lay one band inside, but then I could see some of the light pink fondant and I need to cover that because we just want to see the black. So I ended up adding 2 bands on the inside. In retrospect, I should have recovered the top black and just did 1 band.
Next time you make piggy poop. What was it?
Piggy poop? Peppa Pig. Orhan, I need to make this clear. There will be no next time. These boots are retired. You know what we need to do? We need to make a retired cakes playlist.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna put Lloyd from Ninjago. You can add the Peppa Pig boots. What else would go in there? Oh, add the McDonald's apple pie. I regret the moment I made the decision to make this cake.
Yeah.
What else would go in there? I feel
Chip.
like chip. This would be good. So now I'm gonna take off the masking tape and I'm gonna add a band on the outside that's thicker. And now I'm making the boot look like it's just one. And then I also have to add a band running down the back between the sole and the top band. Now I can move on to creating the pattern, and this is where I no longer have notes. Can you believe that? So I'm going to go back to those 3 colors I rolled out, the white, the burgundy, and the purpley kind of maroon. And I'm cutting out a camouflage pattern. It's kind of like a camouflage pattern. And basically I'm just doing this freehand, which is probably why it's totally driving me crazy. So it's easy in the sense that the pattern doesn't actually follow, you know, a perfect pattern, but it's hard because the colors on the real boot overlap and I need to somewhat make it appear like that. And I cut them out and I added them all around the boot and then I did the second boot. And then I started to add the 2 other colors, cutting out blobs, fitting them on the boot, making, wherever it overlapped, I had to trim away the excess. It was a very long process. It's probably less than a minute in this video, but it took a lot more than a minute. Now after the pattern, rain boots often have a buckle on one side that allows you to adjust them somewhat at the top. So what I did is I made gum paste buckles. I had some gray gum paste. I rolled it out and then I used 2 square cutters to cut out a square buckle. I made extra of them and then I let these buckles dry. Now I'm going to cut out, there's a base to the buckle and it kind of looks like a bone or a letter I. Anyway, you're gonna see me cut out this shape. I cut out 2 of those and then I cut out some bands and then it's so hard to describe. And then I had to cut slits. It's honestly, I had to cut slits. Do you know that the whole time we were making this, Cengiz was like, oh, you're almost done. And I was like, no, I'm not. No, because it's like, the boot looks so simple, but each part takes such a long time.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it. And now I can add the buckle. But before I add the buckle, I want to quickly paint it with silver paint. So to do this, I brushed the dried buckles with shortening, and then I used dry silvered luster dust and just brushed it over. So where the buckle is, on the thicker part of the base, I used a sculpting tool to press in and I added a dragé. These boots I modeled after a pair of Hunter boots, so I am gonna add the label to the front of each boot. I'm gonna let it dry slightly and then glue it onto the front of each boot. Okay, so guys, what's your favorite kids cartoon? I know there's a lot of moms watching who have seen every episode of Peppa Pig. So let me know below, what's your favorite cartoon? Maybe I'll make a cartoon cake.
My favorite cartoon was Darkwing Duck.
It has the word dark twice? Orhan?
No, Darkwing Duck. He's a duck.
Oh, Darkwing Duck. Okay. I loved Inspector Gadget.
Yeah,
and
it's very good.
I really loved the Smurfs. So I made myself a template of Peppa and George, and I cut out all their pieces, like their face and their clothes and their little boots. And then I cut them out of the appropriate colors. So, you know, their faces are pink, their clothes are red and maroon, George's boots are red. And basically I cut out all of the pieces, and again, I always cut out more than I need because you never know. And then I used a pink, because she's a cartoon, she looks outlined. So I used a pink marker to draw their faces on. And then I outlined each part of them with the appropriate color marker. And now I basically need to glue Peppa and George onto each boot, a little clear piping gel, and they're facing each other, they're smiling, they're having a good time. And then I need to use a marker to make sure that I draw directly on the boot their arms and their tails, their little curly pigtails. We have all new live stream workshops out for Bake You Happy. There's cookie decorating, donuts, oh, I want in on that one. All kinds of different baking techniques. Head to the link in the description to find out more. Also, this Sprinkle Squad hoodie that I'm wearing is actually available to anyone. So it's up on the website now. You can pick one up at howtocakeit.com. It's basically perfect for our new home lifestyles. I feel sorry for like business people when they have to go back and put ties on. Oh my goodness.
But maybe the world will change and no one will ever wear anything uncomfortable again.
Do you think so?
No.
Okay guys, that's it for this week. I'll be back next week, and if you need more cake before then click here.